Hey y'all, what's up? It's your boy Rudy. Before you fast forward, just real quick, let me grab your attention. I really need your help. I need to ask you guys a sincere, serious favor. My one and only subscriber has put their foot down and has told me that I need to get to at least 500 subscribers before I'm allowed to get another bike to review. So I need you guys to smash that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below about what you think about the video. It's really gonna help me a lot, and I need to get a new bike. Help a brother out, smash the subscribe button. Let's get this subscribe list going. If you're already here and I'm at 500 subscribers, help me get to 1,000. Help me get to 5,000. Let's get this thing rolling. Help me out, guys. Let's get to the video. So just a real quick overview of what this video is going to be about. If you're here, you're looking for the review on the 2022 Norco Range. I've had this bike for about 8 months. It's been at the bike park several times. I've raced it in the Enduro. I've raced it in some downhill stuff. And I'm just gonna give you guys basically my honest opinion about how the bike feels. Now, this bike started out as a 2022 Norco Range C3 model. It's the most base model of all of the Norco Ranges that you could get. It's pretty far from that. I purposely did purchase this bike in the base model build because I knew I had a lot of other good parts just lying around the garage that I was going to put on this bike anyways, and then resell the things that I didn't need to help offset the cost of the bike. That way I would get, you know, I would see as getting a good deal on a brand new bike. And that's the route that I took. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you guys a parts list of what I have on this bike now. Starting with the bar and stem, it is P&W Range bar and stem. It's a 31/8. I really like that. I have the handlebars cut down to 760, and it's a 40 mil stem. Also, on the end of the handlebars, I have the Brendog, what are they called? DMR death grips, that's what they are. And I really like them. They are the soft and small. I have small hands, so that fits me pretty well. For the brakes, I ended up putting on a set of Magura MT5 HCs, HC3, something like that. On the front rotor, I have a 223 millimeter floating rotor, and on the rear is a 203 millimeter floating rotor. And if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely get a set of Magura brakes. I really do like these. The dropper and dropper lever are both one-up components. The dropper is a 203 millimeter post, and it's got a WTB Silverado titanium post seat on top. The fork is a Zeb Ultimate at 170 millimeters, and the rear shock is the Fox DHX2 with a spring Dex coil, adjustable from 540 to 610. The drivetrain is a mix of SRAM, XO1 shifter, XO1 derailleur. The drivetrain is a mix of NX cranks with XO1 shifter, XO1 derailleur, tooth NX cassette, and the wheels are WTB HTZ 30 millimeter rims on some DT Swiss 240 hubs with a 54 tooth ratchet. The tires that I'm running are Assegai, both front and rear. I got a 2.6 DH in the front and a 2.5 XO Plus in the rear. And I also have a set of Cush Core front and rear on them as well. And the pedals, not that it really matters, they are one-up component. Now, I really should have done this video in two separate parts. I should have did the video whenever I first got the bike, before I made a bunch of changes to it, which really, to be honest, the bike really did well with the components that came with it. I'm gonna tell you guys about the 3 best upgrades that the bike did need. The first upgrade that it needed, that I didn't know that it needed, the bike originally came with the Zeb fork, but it only had the R charger, which means that it only had rebound on the bottom of the fork. Since then, I upgraded it so that it is now a RockShox Zeb Ultimate. I ended up taking out the damper, the ultimate part of the damper, out of another Ultimate, and then I ended up flipping and selling the one that I had on my Bronson. Kind of a crazy story, but that's for another time. Anyways, that was the best upgrade for this bike, because up to that point, I always did think that the bike felt very soft. It felt very, very much like a downhill bike. It set very deep into the mid of the travel, didn't have a whole lot of support, but man, was it very nice and plush. Once I switched over and put the Zeb Ultimate on it, there was so much more support. It sat up way more in the travel. The bike instantly became more poppy. And now that I look back at it, the rear shock was really outperforming the front fork. Now that the fork matches the performance of the shock, the bike is just so dialed in, so dialed in. That was the #1 upgrade. If you're out there and you're getting a C3 model, make sure that you get the damper so that you can make the fork an ultimate. The next big important upgrade that I think the bike really needed was the rims were okay, but the hubs were absolute garbage, which on many base model builds, the hubs engagement is the biggest thing, and that's what it was. I just couldn't stand it. So I knew that right away that was going to be one of the things I was going to switch around, because I had a set of DT Swiss 240 hubs that are on this bike sitting around with a 54 tooth ratchet. So that went on pretty quick after I had the bike. I mean, within a couple of weeks. So that was a huge upgrade. Third and final upgrade that really the bike maybe could have waited a little bit longer was the brakes. I upgraded to those Magura HC3s, and never looking back. The brakes that it had on it before actually really did work pretty well. They were the Shimano MT501 or 510s or something like that, which were 4-piston, and the bike did originally come with 203mm rotors front and rear, but I got stuck behind a slow traveling group of riders, ended up having to use the brakes quite a bit, which in turn made me start getting a bit of brake fade. Had it not been for that, I might have left the brakes on for a little bit longer, but the brake fade, I didn't care for the way that felt. So we went on and got the Magura MT5 pads and rotors. So it was a great upgrade, great addition to the bike. So as many of you know, the Norco Range is on the heavier side of enduro bikes. I mean, this bike, the way it's set up with cush core and everything, weighs in at over 41 pounds. So, I mean, it's no secret that the bike is slow on the climb. But it's not that it can't climb, and it doesn't climb well. When it actually does, it climbs really well, tremendously well. The in and out of the seat. And a lot of it has to do with the high pivot, because just like when you're going down, the way that the pivot point of the rear axle moves, it helps you going down as well as going up. It's a very capable climber. It's just on the heavier side, and it's slow, but it is going to, like an army tank at a slow pace, it's going to go up whatever you point it at, and it's going to do it really well. You're going to just be in the back of the pack whenever it comes to climbing up technical terrain, or I mean really any kind of climb. I mean, it's just a slow climber, but it just doesn't mean that it's not going to climb well, and that the climbing abilities are not superior like other bikes. So I just really wanted to put that out there in the review, that the bike climbs, and it climbs well, it just does it slow. Whenever it comes to climbing this bike, it is definitely more taxing. I mean, the weight alone, there are some enduro bikes out there that are 32, 33 pounds, and I'm sure you add cush core and a couple of other parts on there, and you know, you might be 33 to 35 pounds. This bike is heavy, and even though you just drop it in the lowest gear and climb up everything like an army tank trunk, it still is going to take some out of you. Even the more fit guys for sure is going to feel more taxed on this bike. For all-day riding at an enduro race, you better make sure you're in tip-top shape if you plan on riding this bike, because it's definitely going to tire you out. It's definitely more tiring than a lighter bike, you know, a bike that's maybe 3 or 4 pounds lighter, maybe 5 or 6 pounds lighter. Also, with this bike, the handlebars are very tall. The stack height is really tall on this bike. I like a 20 millimeter rise bar on this bike. I did have a 35 mil rise bar on there, and it was too much. Found myself a nice sweet spot at 35 or at 30 with the P&W, but the stem stack is like slammed. I got like one 5 millimeter spacer underneath there. Other than that, it's slammed. But with the seat tube angle, the effective seat tube angle, the bike climbs really well. It really does. I just don't want people to think that because the bike's heavy, it's not a good climber. The bike climbs amazing. It really does. It climbs well. Now, if you're trying to do some really techie trials type stuff, no, it ain't the bike for that. That's for sure. It isn't the bike for that. But it's going to get you up a lot of steep technical climbs just fine. So I just want to say that I haven't really come across a switchback that I couldn't do. And if I couldn't do it, it wasn't because of the bike. It was because I took maybe a bad angle or something at it. But even at that, whenever you want to put a little bit of power and kind of move the handlebars over, it's not so slack that it doesn't allow you to do that. So I just wanted that little note to be put in my climbing section of this review. All right, here I am. I'm at the top of the Hansen Larson Memorial Trail at Dirk's Draw, about to drop in. It's their double black diamond. It's really probably one of the only trails that's going to give this bike a run for its money. And I don't think it's going to be much of a challenge because I've been down it on other bikes, and this bike is just going to eat this trail up because that's what it does, is eat up the big stuff. One last final thought about climbing on this bike. Like I said before, it does it, and it does it well. It doesn't do it fast. It's taxing. It simply is taxing. So you better be in good shape and have your suspension dialed in if you decide that this is going to be the bike that you want to bring to anything other than bike parking or being at a bike park or even shuttling, because it's taxing. Don't go buying this bike thinking it's a trail bike, because it is not. It'll get you up here, but it's going to be tough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in, give you guys some POV, and at the bottom I'm going to talk about the descending on this bike. All right, here we go. About to drop into Dirk's Draw. This first section is always kind of tough for me. Oh, got it though. Okay, I'm back home in my garage. Got the bike cleaned up, kind of put away. I was really wanting to give you guys a good review on the bike when descending, and I was going to do that after I got down to the bottom of the hill, but I was just so like fired up and stoked that whenever I tried to compose myself to tell you guys about the bike, like there was just so many things rolling through my head, and I felt like after a couple of takes that I just couldn't get everything out that I wanted to say to impose on you guys how much fun this bike is going down. And that's really what this bike is meant for. You know, if you guys are here and you're watching my review, I really appreciate it. I'm sure you've gone out and watched other reviews, like Pink Bike's review, where they did a great review on this. And Henry said it best, I think. Or is this bike a downhill bike that you can pedal up? And I really think that that describes this bike well, because it is on the heavier side. So like pedaling a downhill bike, it's going to take more effort, okay? But whenever you go down on this bike, it is also like a downhill bike. It is plush. It gives you confidence in any situation, whether it's a slow, techie, steep, gnarly descend, or if you're just balls out going as fast as you uncomfortably can go. Like, this bike is going to inspire that confidence to give you the ability to do those kinds of things. That's what this bike is good for. It really is. And that's what this bike is geared for. Norco made this bike for their EWS Enduro race team. And that's how this bike should be treated as such, because it's not a trail bike. Woo! It's not something that you're going to enjoy doing long rides on, where you're having to pedal to keep your flow. It's not a nice flowy bike. It's something that really you need to climb up to the tallest mountain that you can get to. Woo! So that you have that gravity fed energy to help pull you down the mountain. Whew. So that you can just go down. That trail can get a little gnarly. The gnarliest, chunkiest, steepest stuff. Whew. With confidence and get down there as fast as humanly possible. If you're not trying to race enduro races, or if you're not trying to do free ride things, or you don't live in a place where there's shuttle access or a lift service of some sort, a bike park, like this bike isn't for you. It just simply isn't. It's not that kind of a bike. This bike deserves the chunky, steep, crazy stuff that makes you think twice before you hit it. I just want to get into a little bit of the characteristics of the bike. For example, the high pivot. The high pivot, it feels totally different in the rear from other bikes, okay? For example, whenever you're coming off of a drop or you're pumping into a roller to help gain speed, this thing, literally, it feels like it's shoving you forward from the rear, which is a really cool feeling because it feels like it's helping you go faster. Whenever you come down off of a drop, you know, the bike kind of compresses, and then whenever you come up, that rear end just kind of rolls down and pushes you forward. It's such a cool feeling, but it's not an awkward feeling at all. It doesn't feel unnatural. It just feels very different from what you're used to. And that also helps when you're going downhill on that chunky, rocky gnar, even if it's a slow techie section, because the way that rear wheel comes up at an arc, like it just rolls over everything and gets out of the way. Like it still gives you like really, really good support, probably the best support when climbing up or going down. I kind of mentioned that, but when you're going down, like it just rolls out of the way of everything and never gets hung up. But whenever you come into a situation where you're coming up to like a really steep section and maybe you need to slow down quickly, or you're coming into a berm and you need to hit the anchors, like the bike just keeps you in the middle and it doesn't feel like it's trying to roll you forward or sit you down on the bike. Like it just brakes really nicely and settles so that you can make that turn. And I think that's another great characteristic that I think and other reviews that people have really missed about this bike whenever it comes to braking. In corners, I really think that this bike made me better at cornering. Do I think that you could snap out of corners a little bit faster if it was a smaller wheeled bike in the back, like a mullet? Yeah, probably. But that would be the only situation where I think a 27.5 in the rear wheel would be nice to have. Unless you're trying to make this bike something it's not. This bike is not made to be poppy and jump and skip off of everything on the trail. This bike is made to go down and stay planted and feel like, and make you feel like you have the confidence to go over everything at lucrative speeds, like crazy, like Mach chicken speeds, but still have the confidence to know that if you need to get off that line or get onto another line, or it just breathes confidence, and it just, in any situation. And that's what this bike does. Like it's trying to get down the mountain as fast as possible so that it can give you the best time possible. And if you're not trying to race enduro or do those free ride kinds of things, this bike just isn't for you, because that's not what this bike is made for. It's not a trail bike. It's gonna suck. It sucks pedaling this bike up the hill. It does. I mean, it sucks on any bike really, as far as I'm concerned. But whenever you go down, it is only second to a downhill bike on the way that this bike feels. It is absolutely amazing. I am super happy that I was able to get my hands on this bike. I'm really happy that I was able to do the review on this bike. With that being said, where I live currently, this bike can only be ridden on one trail that makes this bike fun to ride on. And that's the Dirk's Draw that we just did earlier in the video. Other than that, this bike would not have a place in my stables. And if I weren't doing the things that I'm doing with YouTube and trying to build my channel, I simply wouldn't get another bike like this, because it would be harder for me to review currently where I'm at. I won't always be here, so I will be getting another enduro bike, and it will be more than likely another large bike, maybe an e-bike. I don't know. That's what I want to do, is I want to get an e-bike next, I think. Anyways, guys, that's it for the descending part. I'm going to put, since this video is already getting a little long, I'm going to put the quirkiness things that I found along owning this bike in another video, because this video is already going quite a bit longer than I initially thought. Peace out. Go ride your bike.